Testing, testing, testing. JB here, JB here. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. December 27th, 2023. Nearly 1 o'clock here on this fine day, the last couple days of 2023. Just going to be really quick. Don't have too much to talk about that I didn't discuss near the close yesterday. But first, I want to talk about MASI, right? So ticker MASI. If you didn't watch my top 5 stocks for 2023, MASI was one of those top 5 stocks. I thought it was a great story in the medtech space. Interesting how they got started. They have a lot of patents and technology. They're pretty much in the sensor and monitoring business for hospitals and physician clinics and things like that. And they do well. $2 billion in revenues. The company's now it's a $6 billion company. But some of the headwinds was that they have a sensor technology, oxygen sensor technology, that they said that Apple took, and that Apple hired some of the, I don't know what the wording you would use, but they took some of their folks who had knowledge of the technology, and then they put those folks on the Apple Watch program and integrated that into the Apple Watch. So the oxygen sensor is pretty much new within the last 1 or 2 iterations of the Apple Watch. So some would say it's David versus Goliath, that whole story where you think that folks, the big largest company or one of the largest companies on the planet is going to smash one of these smaller cap names. And it looked to be the case. So in October, these lawsuits have been going for a while. If you listen to their earnings calls and some of the sessions they've had with analysts, they were up in the air about what was going to happen. But sure enough, what happened October 23rd or so, the ITC ruled that it's infringement on Masimo's patents, and there was a 60-day presidential window where the president could say no and nix it, or if those 60 days expired, Apple would have to stop sending their watches to the U.S. consumer. So sure enough, that's what happened. So that looked great, and I don't know. So Masimo had horrible earnings in the summer. I wouldn't say horrible. They just lowered their revenue guidance. So instead of growing 6 to 8%, it was like a flat growth, and the stock just got pummeled because it's a high growth company. All the way down from, it was 160 in middle of July, all the way down to under $80 in November, and then just started to melt higher with the rest of the market. I don't know how much of that is because of this ruling from this patent ruling or not, but I thought, there's 2 scenarios. One, I think the stock's going to go up on its own merits anyway, and then number 2, you have to think Apple Watch does like $17 billion in revenues. I guess in 2023 is estimated. I don't know if that's the exact data, but give or take a couple billion. What does it take to do some kind of licensing deal for the technology for Masimo? You would think they'd be open to it, considering they do $2 billion in revenues. Maybe they license it $200 million a year, whatever that is, or they just buy some of the technology outright. But of course, what happens? I get the calls this morning, and then Apple got a temporary stay on the ban. So there's I guess I don't know if they're going to wait for whatever. I don't know what the whole timeline. Supposedly, I guess they had till January for the appeal. So we'll see how this all plays out. I really think, if anything, it's net bullish MASI because they're just getting the exposure. If Apple finds a workaround, which maybe they're going to do a software update, who knows what that looks like? You would think they would have done that already. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think at some point they'll work something out with Masimo. So still like it. I mean, the calls took a hair, you got cut a bit, but the premium is still holding up. Luckily, I didn't get later dated further out strikes. But if it holds here 115 or so, I might look for some 135, 140 calls. I think it's heading higher on its own merits. So that's MASI. Unfortunate timing. But I still think it bodes well. Whether the court rules in favor of Apple or not, I think it just puts more eyes on MASI. So great company. Listen to my webinar. They're also in the audio space, high-end audio. I didn't really understand the acquisition, but it all, I guess, is part of their audio sensory monitoring tech and all these things they're into. So they also have their own watch too. So that's MASI. Yeah, interesting, right? But if they can, if they had a non-compete clause, okay, that helps. But also, it's their patent. So if they're using that exact technology and it's replicated on the Apple Watch, then it's definitely you would think they have, and it looks like, and there's documents, and I looked through some of them. It looks like they have a good case. So we'll have to see what happens. So that's, and the other side is you would think that Apple you just want to move on, right? It's the holiday season now, or ending. You don't want to be in a situation where, you could lose sales. So there's estimate. An analyst this morning thinks it's between 100 and 300 million in revenue. It's only been a day, so probably is minimal impact right now. But you have to think they're gonna figure that out. So that's number one. Number two is Ulta. Let me just. Why is this up here? All right, sorry, folks. Ultimune. I got the calls yesterday morning when it started to gap after the open. Mentioned on the watch list. Closed right near $11. Then this morning again gapping. I think it tested 12 in the pre-market. Sold off under 11.50 or so. Then back up to 12, and then it actually went green to red down to 10.50, and now it's here at $11. Like I put on the watch list this morning, high short interest. It's probably going to continue to remain volatile, considering it was a $2-3 stock. You have to think some folks are taking profits. It was also much higher months ago. So you have two sides on a tug of war here. I think it heads to 15. It might be bumpy on the way, and then who knows if there's FOMO people, or you're Googling, especially you're a trader, how can I make money on GLP-1 stocks? And here's one that's been flying under the radar. You saw it running up this morning, and VKTX was running up in tandem. I think VKTX is the better of the bunch, but I'm in both, so I hope they both go higher. I lock some in. I just don't want to lose profits. I put it on the watch list as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see it back at $9 at the end of the week, but I also won't be surprised if it's $20. So I want to make sure I take some of the risk off, cover some of the costs, and then be able to still take advantage if it rallies and not lose as much if it doesn't. So that's kind of the thought process there on alt. I'll continue to hold that one. I think 15 is a good target, at least in the next week or two. And again, it's probably going to be, maybe it goes to 10, back up to 12, back to 11, then up to 13, things like that. Not easy to hold. So that's same with VKTX. And the S&P. And, I try and find conviction right now this week, and I think some of these names might melt higher, but you can see these swings. It seems like there's almost a vacuum in some of these pockets, right? Some vacuum pockets where once the SPY hits today it's 476, hit 476, boom, back under 47, 475.40 in a couple minutes. Low volume yesterday was the second lowest volume session of the year outside of the half session after Thanksgiving. So, and a lot of people like to use volume as an excuse. Volume is buyers and sellers, regardless of how much volume it is, right? So you still have people who are bullish of stock or bearish or taking profits. But when does tax loss season? Is it 3 days out? I get a little, especially where the market is too. I would love to get convicted in the name to play for upside. I was looking at Roku the last 2 days and, even last week, and I thought at some point it's going to bounce. Rallied yesterday, and I'm like, I missed the move after I added the calls on ALT. And then this morning it gaps at the open and then just sells off down to 93. So I'm like, good thing I didn't get the calls. At some point that's going to head back up into the hundreds and probably 115. Yeah. Last little tidbit of info, and I've some discussion with some folks, and you got to be careful this time of year, right? Especially if you've had a great December, right? You locked in lots, maybe you had some 10 baggers, you turned whatever into a lot of money, and then you sold right before the end of the year. And then come January, you get a little more aggressive because you're more confident. And sometimes, when you have good trades going, you keep going, and then eventually the market just takes it all back from you, right? That's what the market does best. So the worst situation to have is you're up big in December, the whole year, you lock all your profits in, you're sitting on, lots of cash, and then you go into January and you take that cash and you lose it all in the first month. And then what happens? So you're paying the gains on the profits for 2023, and then you're not able to offset those gains with the losses you just had in January. So, you can make 500 grand in 2 days at the end of December, lock it in and have 500 grand in cash. And then the first trade of 2024, you put all that 500 grand into a trade and you lose it all. So now you have to pay capital gains on the 500 grand for 2023. And then you can't use that 500 grand that you just lost to offset the entire, I think it's $3 grand to offset. unless you have huge gains that you can offset. We're spiking here. So just lesson learned. I saw a lot. You see a lot of people post that with the COVID 2020, the huge rally, and then everybody thought the market was going to still go. Maybe it was 2021 into 2022. We hit highs in 2022 at the start of January, and then it was downhill from there. And a lot of people were sitting on cash that they huge profits 2021. They lost it all in 2022, and they couldn't offset the entire losses. Substantial sums of money that they lost couldn't offset the substantial gains. And then they get the tax bill come April, and they say, "Wait a second," and then you're screwed just because of 1 or 2 days, right? It doesn't really make sense to me. It does, but it doesn't. It's a rule. I get it, but if you had made all the profits on December 23rd and then put it all in trade on December 24th and lost all that money, you wouldn't owe any taxes. But the fact that you made all the profits on December 23rd and then lost it on January 5th, it's a tremendous difference in the amount of money that, it's now you have no money and you have to pay the taxes. So anyway, just food for thought. Always be careful, especially at the start of New Year. Always be careful. That's a non-discussion. Always be careful. All right, so I think that's it. Roku. Great. So I put on the watch list this morning too with Roku. If you got the email yesterday evening around Amazon, and you pay the Amazon price. I've been an Amazon Prime member since it started, and you have Amazon, you have Prime Videos, right? So Amazon already rolled out, was it Freevee? I forget what their free content platform is, but you can watch movies that have ads, and Freevee, I forget the name of it. But also, if you have Amazon Prime, the Prime videos are free, and there's no commercials, no ads, no things like that. I'm sure when they signed up for Prime Video, that was some of the things that was a benefit. But now they're pulling back on that, and they're going to offer minimal ads for Prime Videos. And I think for a $2.99 a month, you can have no ads on the Prime Videos. So not only that, in the email, they say that, and then they go down underneath and show all the Prime member benefits, which, it is, if you order a lot of stuff on Prime, just the shipping alone pays for it. Amazon Music, so if you have your Alexa devices in your kitchen and, the wife is cooking, she wants to listen to her favorite country singer, whatever, you just, it all kind of makes sense. But, Apple Plus has their whole thing, and Disney, and so there's so many different services that eventually they'll start, you have to figure out which ones you need to cut out and which ones you're going to keep. But I think that bodes well for Roku because it just, adds credibility to their business model, which, Roku makes money on the ads, right? So all these companies, I think Apple Plus is the only one who doesn't have, Apple Plus is the only one who doesn't have an ad option on their platform. But it just shows Roku was the first content platform for everybody to put their content on, and then Roku reaps the rewards advertising on it. So anyway, so I thought that was bullish Roku. I was looking again this morning. Thankfully, I didn't pull the trigger, but I might at some point today. I think that's it. Exact Science all the way up to 77.42. So I'm hoping the calls start moving. Same with Redfin. Redfin's almost at highs here for the day. 1065, up nearly 5.5%. I think there's housing permit data at the end of the week today, this week, I think Thursday, one of the last piece of data for 2023. But Redfin, I think it heads to $15. I was talking about yesterday, it's like the poor man's Zillow. I think Zillow trades 6 or 7 times revenues. Redfin trades 1 times revenues. I'm not saying they're apple to apple comparison. They have different, cost margins, ways they derive their revenues from, things like that. But I think it should outperform into 2024. So I wish the calls, the February 12s, I didn't even look what they are now. I was looking at the open when it started to run, and I'm like, maybe I'll be able to lock some in for 100%. And they haven't really rallied as much with the stock, typically because they're expensive. Typically I get inexpensive. So I probably would have been better off going out with the 14s or the 15s as opposed to getting the 12s. So the 85 by 95. So, they're still green, which is good. But, sometimes that's why when you get those, you have the risk. If you get further out of the money, the risk that if it doesn't move much, they're going to get destroyed quickly. But if it does move much, you're going to, instead of getting a 60% gain, I got 65. So it was whatever that is, 40%. Set again 40%, you're getting 100% on a move like this. And then if it keeps going, you're getting 200%. So on and so forth. That's it. No trades in the 2K challenge. I'll post once I see something I feel convicted in, I'm just not going to make a trade just to make a trade. And MASI's down here at 1365. And SPY's hitting highs here. Interesting. So, what is this? All right, folks. Have a great afternoon. I'll try and get on later. If not, I'll be on tomorrow. Rock and roll.